There we go. Okay, I'll just mute you all now as well. And welcome. Today we're going to talk about playing like an orchestra and some ideas and tools that I've discovered after researching through method books. And I'll give you some information, but I'd really love to try as much as possible to apply it, to have you apply some of this information and try things out, get different sounds and that kind of thing. So a very hands-on workshop today. It's going to be I think a lot of fun, because it's the kind of thing where you can make pretty quick changes, but you hear a big difference very quickly, I think. So I hope you all got the book, Tone and Dynamics. If not, you should have got an email about 45 or close to an hour ago, and I'll send it again in case you didn't get it. So that's got all the information. Now we're only going to talk about tone today, not dynamics, because that's a whole separate subject, I think, of itself. You could really spend that will be another subject in later workshops, so actually next week. So what we'll do, we're going to talk about tone production, defining tone production. It's the first thing. We've got all these quotes here. I won't take too long because they're there so you can read them. And then we're going to talk about plucking regions next. And this is where I'd like to try and get some application here, because this is something you can apply fairly quickly to something. And then we're going to skip dynamics, which is in the book next. We're going to skip dynamics and we'll go over to orchestral imitations last, okay? And this is where it's like really fun here, because you see how 19th century, late 18th and 19th century guitarists were striving to imitate very vividly and very specifically, striving to imitate orchestral instruments, other instruments. Okay, and you've got all of the examples are in the book. So let's begin with defining tone production the 19th century guitarist's way. So here I've just got a collection of quotes from different guitarists of the late 17 and 1800s, and it's really interesting. You see, I think, the same conclusion over and over again with every single quote. So if we start with probably the most well-known guitar player of the period, Fernando Sor, he said that he wished to take advantage of the difference offered by the string on touching it in different places. And I established the common place of the hand, is very precise, at 1/10 of the whole length of the string from the bridge. So he had found his kind of common place. We would call that just the normal, area where we pluck, sort of maybe somewhere in between the sound hole and the bridge. At that point, its resistance being nearly as powerful as the impulse given to it by my finger, without a great effort, I obtained a clear and lengthened tone without its being violent. When I desire to have a more mellow and sustained sound, I touch the string at 1/8 part of its length from the bridge. So that would be what we call tusto. To make the sound result from a kind of friction and not from a pull. If on the contrary I desire a louder sound, I touch it nearer the bridge than usual, and in this case I must exert a little more force in touching it. So Fernando Sor is saying here, he had his normal position. When he wanted to play mellow and sustained, mellow could also mean softer, he would play closer to the fretboard. When he wanted to play louder, he would play closer to the bridge. It's very, very straightforward, but when it's applied, it's really, really powerful. And you see that all of these quotes are basically saying the same thing. Aguado is, Aguado doesn't speak specifically to the positioning of the hand, but he does say each string has different characteristics according to its particular thickness, By varying the touch, it is possible to obtain strong or weak, brief or long, soft or violent sounds. So he wasn't seeking to play, super consistently one dynamic for a long period of time. I think he was varying his touch quite frequently. Let's look at a couple of more well-known figures. So Francesco Molino, is down the bottom here. The right hand exerts no other way of playing with expression than first to pluck the string with clearness, creating a soft and agreeable sound, imitating as much as possible that of the best harpsichord. It's very interesting comparison. And then to characterize with soul and energy all the ideas and sentiments which must be expressed by means of well-graduated pianos and fortes, which ought to be noticeable and which produce such a great effect. So similar to Aguado, he's sort of saying that, we should characterize that sound with all the ideas and sentiments which can be expressed through pianos and fortes well graduated, which ought to be noticeable and produce a great effect. Carulli, a very, very clear quote here. The right hand does not have a fixed position. Because of the extent that you want to sweeten the sounds to imitate the harp, and to do so you have to bring it closer to the sound hole. When you want to play loud, you have to bring the hand closer to the bridge. It's probably the most concise quote about what we're talking about here with, defining tone production. These guys defining tone production. So just from these 4 quotes, it's really, we have a couple of things here. Saw and Carulli are saying when they play softer, they'd be moving their hand closer to the sound hole or to the fretboard. When they play louder, they're playing closer to the bridge. And then their normal sound, you can sort of get some other information. Molino says, clearness is sort of a desirable quality, imitating the harpsichord. And Saw also said that too, a clear and lengthened tone without its being violent. So clarity, I think, is important in tone as well. So what do you think of these quotes? Does this take anyone by surprise? No? Karen says no? Okay, that's good. I would thought that maybe it would take some by surprise. It's not surprising, maybe because did you know this before you had seen this book, I guess? Or Karen already knew. How did you know? Where did you find that information out, Karen?
I've been playing a long time, and I go to a society, and we do a lot of, I had lessons for a while, and we do ensemble work, and there's a lot of information that gets given out when we do ensemble work, and that's, it's kind of one of the things that we've been informed about.
Okay. Was that specifically for the music of this period or just in general?
No, in general, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
It may have been said when working on a particular piece from this period, but it's kind of part of the repertoire of ways of producing sound that we've been introduced to. And
Yep. That's good. But the way that what I've noticed is that it seems that when people think about classical period music, it's like, varying the tone is something that was done later on, in the very late 1800s, in the very late 19th century, and then into the 20th century with, sort of the Segovia sort of style of playing. But I'd say that Segovia and Bream's approach to this music is probably closer than what a lot of modern guitarists today do, because of all of the things that they add, all of the dynamics and tone color changes. I'd probably argue that they're playing it more stylistically true to the period than a lot of modern guitarists. There are guitarists who are starting to play on romantic guitars and doing some a lot of this kind of thing, but But if you think of the sort of the Barowaco, the 90s, the David Russell Barowaco sort of playing, that kind of style of playing, it's they're not varying, at least from what I've listened to. They're sort of not, when they play music from this period, they tend to keep it pretty consistent with the tone color. They're not like Bream, where you see really, really frequent changes. Jill, did you have a question or a comment? Just want to unmute yourself, please, Jill. Or I can.
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
No, I was just going to say, it's interesting when you're saying way people play now, because there's a lot of early music people that are going on about the resting your little finger on the face of the guitar.
Yeah.
And if you do that too rigidly, you can't really have that movement up and down, can you? It makes for rather static playing. So that's really interesting. There's so much detail about this, about the different positions.
That's a good point. I don't know how they were achieving that, those changes of position. If they did have their pinky resting, I don't know how they would have achieved these very easily. But I think by this point, the technique had changed on the guitar, so that guitarists were no longer resting the pinky on the soundboard. But there's definitely a murky area, probably, I don't know exactly when. I haven't studied the right-hand technique enough through, the 1700s. I think probably towards the end of the 1700s, I think, is maybe when the right, but it's so murky because some people probably were still playing, this maybe 5-string guitar, 5-course guitar, still when this instrument we play is, that's a whole topic in itself, but this instrument that we play with its tuning and 6 strings is, it wasn't really standardized until maybe the late 1800s. Antonio Torres was sort of, that's kind of when this instrument was really standardized. Before then, you see pictures of Napoleon Coste, for example, where he's got like 50, like maybe 20 guitars surrounding him, and they all have different shapes and sizes and numbers of strings and all that kind of thing. So, it's an interesting subject, but kind of, I think, deserves a whole, study in itself. But yeah, another interesting point raised there about the technique, right hand technique. Anyone else? This doesn't take anyone by surprise that, Carulli said the right hand does not have a fixed position. Because when I read that, I was surprised. I was very surprised that Carulli was saying that. I wasn't surprised that that's a thing to do, but I was surprised Carulli was saying it.
It's funny they wanted to imitate the harp. It's funny they had in mind that very much this thing of imitating other instruments.
Yeah.
And making up for it being not an orchestra but one instrument doing those functions.
That's true. Yep. This is a more sort of general statement with imitating the harpsichord. And it's interesting here, it says that of the best harpsichord too, not an average one. Yeah, the best harpsichord. But later on we're going to see examples where specifically imitating the harp, not just in the way you play, but in the type of musical figurations that you see as well. So, okay, well, I'm a little bit surprised that no one's surprised, but that's a pleasant surprise. Let's say that's good. Maybe this kind of information is more widely known about now than I thought. Well, there are some more tones. There are some more quotes that you can read here. Okay, we'll say more obscure, though no less significant authors. Sidney Pratton, very, very important figure in all of this. And then Otto Feder, he's come from Method Books, and Joseph Kirkman, who was actually Mrs. What was her name? Louisa. She was actually Louisa Kirkman. I should have written Mrs. Joseph Kirkman. Okay, so if we had to summarize the quotes that I read and the other quotes here: vary the tone color frequently in accordance to the mood and character of the music. When not varying the tone, aim for a sweet, clear, charming, and mellow tone. When playing loud, play close to the bridge. When playing soft, play close to the sound hole. Imitate the harp, which is sweet, and imitate the harpsichord, which is clear. And more imitations will be explored later on. Alright, so this is just a very general overview of that, and that's really there to just kind of open the idea that we can move our hand quite freely between different plucking regions. And on that note of plucking regions, that is the next topic, and this is where we'll get a bit more specific, and hopefully we can do some application of this. So, plucking regions. So, most of the quotes from the previous section suggest 19th century guitarists frequently changed colour and were moving their right hand. As we saw, guitarists of the 21st century today tend to think of there being 3 main plucking regions. Would you all agree with that? We all tend to think Ponticello, normal, and Tasto, right? Something along those lines. When playing 19th century music, it's often a trend for 21st century guitarists to be conservative with varying colours, perhaps due to a mistaken belief that that was how guitarists of the era played. However, a diagram found found in Sydney Pratton's guitar school sheds new light on this idea. So I've re-represented her diagram into photos here, but I can show you the diagram too. So her diagram has 5 plucking regions, not 3, but 5. Example A, which is very, very close to the bridge. Example B, which is a little bit further away from the bridge. And then example C is about at the rosette. Example D is at about the sound hole. And example E is right up at the fretboard. Okay, so 5 different plucking regions. Sydney Pratton, just to give you some context, Sydney Pratton's method book was published in around 1850. So the method book that I'm referring to here. So each each plucking region is given a description of the kind of effect that you can get there. So example A, which is right up close to the bridge, is for imitating horns or bugles on the gut strings. Imitating horns or bugles on the gut strings, that would be the treble strings. Example B, for forte and double forte. Example C, for general playing. Example D, for dolce or soft tone. And example E, for pianissimo. Alright. So very, very specific, and we have 5 different regions there. Sydney Pratton, I should call her Katerina because that was her name, Katerina Pratton, also showed how this could be applied to an example of music. So here we have, this is Sour's Minuet number 5 from Opus 11. Measures 35 to 40, just 6 bars of music. And how many times does she want the color to change? 5 times in 6 bars. It's just about once per bar, changing the color. Okay. Now, obviously, it's not going to be like this for every single bar in every single piece. This particular example has some dynamics here that we can, we can use, but it opens the possibility that you could change the color. You could be changing tone color, almost measure by measure. Okay, so I'll play this for you. And maybe I'll sort of talk through it. So the first example E. So that's right, right at the fretboard here. Example D, so we're getting a little bit louder, a little bit more towards the sound hole. Example C. Example B. And then back to example D at the sound hole. Okay, so let me play that through, you know, just without stopping here. Oh, comment, Karen?
You went totally off, and it's just reconnected me.
Oh, did that happen for everyone else, or? Yeah, so that must have been on your end, unfortunately. Sorry about that.
I could see me, and it reconnected me automatically.
Yeah, you must have, your internet might have just dropped out for a minute. Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
But I'll play it again. I'll play it again. So I just demonstrated it and talked through, you know, each measure there. But this time I'll play it through without stopping. Okay, can you all see my right hand? Okay, let me this down a little bit lower. See all my right hand there? Okay, so I'll play that again. And just try to follow along, and I have to be very careful. It's very specific, you know, to be playing these notes and then think, you know, which position am I going to? It's very specific, but it does get a little bit easier, you know, the more you do it, but still involves some thinking. So, example E to start out. Just to give you some context, I'll play that all with one color. Okay, what did you all think? Now, does this take you by surprise? Yeah, Jill?
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Makes a big difference. Yeah. Yeah, it does. Very good. I think so too.
There's much more colour in the piece, isn't it?
Much more
There's
colour.
way more variety when you shift your right hand.
Yeah, yeah. You get a whole palette of colours, a palette of sounds that's just not there. You just can't really get that if your hand is in one position. I mean, you can vary the tone a little bit, you can vary the dynamics, but you don't get those really stark, vivid contrasts.
It makes it much more dramatic as well, doesn't it?
Much more dramatic.
Dramatic shape, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's giving much more emotional content to it.
More emotional content. It's great, great stuff. Yeah, awesome. That's probably the word. That's probably what they were thinking. Just those exact words you've all said. So. So this is something you can do here. What I've done over the page is I've taken a piece by Fernando Saw and just sort of applied this information in my own way, and I've marked it into the score. Okay, and now these dynamics. I'm not sure, can't remember if they're the actual dynamics. I think they are in the original, the piano here and then the forte on these chords. I think those dynamics are in the original. I've got this forte in brackets because I think that's not in the original, but I think he intended it probably just, you know, it's the same gesture over here, just with a different chord. So you know, taking that, I sort of just thought about, well, what example, you know, playing piano here, example E, forte, example B. So we get okay, pretty dramatic, I think. Again, if I played it with the same color, or all with the same color, let's see what happens. think? I mean, it's quite simple. It's quite obvious, maybe, but you know, sometimes these are the most important things that we need to really pay attention to, and applying this information, I think, really helps. So, any comments about that? It's probably similar comments to before, I guess. And then here we have, this is the, should have given context here, this is Saul's grand solo, so it's one of his, you know, fairly well-known larger scale pieces. That's the introduction, and it's full of, I mean, you could do that, you know, throughout the introduction. It's got all these opportunities to do that kind of thing. And then we get into the sort of, you know, next section, the allegro section. And here we've got forte and piano again, right? So now we can do some cool things. And then over here we sort of get this call and response between different parts, and that might be some opportunity for changing the color a little bit too, to bring that out. So let me play this for you. So I'm starting on example B. Sorry, let me try that again. Let me try that again. That's actually just an excerpt there. I've just taken 3 different excerpts. Alright, so let me do that again for you. So forte and then the piano. Alright, and if I play that just with one color. Okay, so to add some drama. I mean, you could make that even more exaggerated if you wanted to. And then here we have some opportunity for changing color, sort of, you know, for each of these little sub phrases, which creates like a call and response. So you could do example E, B, and then D, I mean, you can mix and match that in many different ways, but as long as you're changing. Yeah, if I play that with one color. Right. That is how I'd sort of expect a modern guitarist to, you know, there's kind of like a Russell Barroeco kind of a guitar player. That sort of, you know, that's sort of what I would expect. Just very, very clear, you know, beautiful phrasing, very legato, very consistent. What I'd expect from Bream Segovia, kind of a guitar player, is what I'm trying to demonstrate here with those frequent and very vivid color changes. Okay, so the conclusion about this, there are 5 plucking regions when playing 19th century guitar music examples A to E. You can change plucking regions measure by measure. Plucking regions and dynamics go hand in hand. Yeah, Eli, you like the piece? Yeah, it's a good one. I think you would like it. It's very orchestral. Very, very orchestral. I think you'd like it. Grand Solo by Fernando Saw. My hands are freezing, so I can barely play right now. Melbourne, we're supposed to be, you know, in, you know, getting into warm weather, but today is raining and cold. So, so I'd love to open it up now and do a little bit of application. And we did have some people who submitted, thinking here, who was it? Was it Jill who said variations on a theme by Mozart? Did you send me that message? that could be a really good one to look at. Let me get the score. Maybe we can start. Do you mind if we take a look at? I mean, I think even right at the introduction, there could be some opportunities to apply this information. Let me just grab the score for everyone. Almost got it. There's the console. There we go. So if we just take a look at this introduction, I think there's some opportunities here. Are you comfortable demonstrating that, Jill? Some of this opening.
Okay, I'll try. I mean, I'm not very adept at it. I'm just a.
Yeah, that's all good. Even if we just take a look at the first eight bars would be great. I think we can even there. Does your edition have these dynamics that are in this one? Forte on these chords at the start.
Yes. Yeah.
And then a dolce here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's already a little bit of scope. You know, that means those forte chords you could you could think of the examples. Yeah. Maybe not example A, maybe example B for those chords would be great.
Yeah.
And then the dolce you could sort of choose between example D, which is sort of at the sound hole, or example E, which is at the fretboard.
Okay, yeah.
What puts you on here? And now, Jill, I'm wondering with these if it's a similar situation to sometimes I think composers would write something one time and then not write it in the second time, maybe just for convenience. So maybe, yeah, these forte chords again, perhaps these could also be dolce. And
okay, yeah. Whoops, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great, Jill. Maybe if we could just focus on that section. It would be fantastic if we could see your right hand, please, so that we could see if that's possible. That would be really great, just to see what the extent to which you're. Yeah. That's good. That's pretty good. Yep. And your guitar is looks like a romantic guitar. You know,
it's a little Torres one.
Yeah, Torres. Yeah, there you go. So, could you play those same bars for us again, and so we can see your right hand and what you're doing? Yes, please.
Whoops.
Beautiful. Yeah. That's it. No, good job. I know it adds a whole new technical dimension to it as well, doesn't it?
It's quite strange.
Yeah. I
find
that.
A small guitar because it's you overshoot.
Yeah. Yes, you overshoot a bit on the smaller. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Very nice. Very simple. You know, it's quite simple, isn't it, to think of doing that? But I think it's very effective. It's very, very effective, because then you hear this kind of like a tutti, the whole orchestra here, and then you get a totally different color here, which is like a smaller, section of the orchestra at this point. and then we just get the same thing. So you really hear this kind of call and this response. Call and response. And oh, hello, Chris. Thanks for being here, Chris. Yeah, we've just talked about plucking regions, and we're applying it to Saws Variations on a Theme by Mozart, the introduction here. So, Jill, if you were to give the examples that Pratton was using, A, B, C, D, what would your forte? What example would you sort of choose there?
That would be B.
Example B. So that's sort of like half.
Yeah, would you go right down to E? A, I mean.
You want to go right down to A, or?
Yeah, probably B, I think.
Probably B, yeah. A is sort of almost a special effect because A is like right next to the bridge. It's a very, very peculiar sound there. Okay, so let's say example B. Yeah, example B. And then I'm just kind of giving you all an example of what might be a good, good sort of way to mark this into your music. Example B, and then for the Dolce. D, yeah, it looks like you're at D, which is about the sound hole. Yeah, so yeah, do D. Example D, and we'll do that until there. Okay, and then you're going back to forte. Now you could do the same example B, example D, or you could vary it a little bit and you could do example C, maybe not as harsh if you wanted to, and then you could do example E here, which is even more tusto.
Up to E, yeah.
Yeah. So E would be maybe even more than that. Maybe even. Oh no, yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, right on the fretboard. Your hand is actually, your fingers are actually plucking where the fretboard is. Yeah, yeah. And different guitars, it's worth experimenting a little bit because different guitars will have different. They'll be set off in different ways at different points on the string. It's worth kind of experimenting a little bit, finding a really specific type of sound that's produced from that. So there you go. So just those opening 8 bars gives us a good. There's a good little section there. So thank you, Jill, and hopefully you can, keep on applying that sort of thinking to the rest of the piece as you're learning it. Yeah, excellent. Anyone else like to have a go at a particular section of something?
Would Lacrima be okay?
Yes, Eli.
Please.
Which piece? Sorry.
Lacrima.
Lagrima.
The late 19th century.
Yes, this is a great one. All right. So maybe for this we could just, because I don't think he wrote any dynamics into the manuscript or into the first edition or early editions. I don't think we have any dynamics, so we have to be creative here. So I guess the first thing to ask then is what ideas do you have, Eli? Maybe we can just talk about the first section, which is 8 bars.
Well, the beginning has a slight crescendo for me. like the first bar, and then the second one, maybe example D.
Second bar or second phrase?
Bar.
Second bar, you want to go to example D. Okay. So you're going to do a crescendo and then fool us all and go suddenly to example D. Oh, okay, nice.
Well, the first note can still be a slightly louder than.
It's sort of a D. It's sort of a it's sort of a D crescendo, but you're ending up at example D, sort of moving there gradually. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's good. And then for the next two bars, would you do the same thing or?
Maybe everything just shifted up a bit and softer.
Beautiful. Yeah. That's nice. Sounding good. Okay. So, and sorry, let's just clarify. Where are you starting? At the very beginning? Example. Sorry.
Shall I play the first four bars?
Yes, please. Yeah. Beautiful. Very nice. So you sort of started, I think, at around example C, like sort of a normal sound. Normal position? And then crescendo, and then, and then decrescendo. So fantastic. And the next four bars, what?
Maybe around normal position, example C or B, somewhere there.
Why not try B, just because it's one you haven't used yet?
Sorry, let me try it again.
Could I suggest, Eli, maybe at this point, when we get this chord, this kind of melody here coming in, maybe you could change color there. So it sounded like you were keeping one color there for that part, and then maybe you could do a sudden, because you did a gradual shift over here. So it'd be maybe interesting to hear a sudden shift over here, if you don't mind. Nice. Okay, beautiful. Could you just for experimentation's sake, could you try playing this part here at example E, which is where your hand is right at the, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
That's nice, isn't it? It's harp-like. And then, I mean, you could just stay there, or you could change again, but maybe, what if you just stayed in that position for the rest of the phrase? I really like that kind of ending. That's a bit more, fading away rather than a strong ending. But that's he hasn't written anything, so it's really our responsibility to kind of come up with a interpretation. So I like this.
Nice ending at E.
Yeah, I think that's nice at the end there, and I like this first section, how you're changing the color gradually. You're gradually moving, and then you're gradually moving, and then for the first four bars, and then in the next four bars, you've got more sort of vivid, sudden contrasts there of color, Would you like to? Could you demonstrate from the beginning here to the end of that section, please? Beautiful. Wow, very nice. Yeah, fantastic. That really adds a lot of dimension to it. Yeah.
I like that.
Very nice, Eli. Thank you. Thank you. How does that? What does everyone? Anyone have thoughts about that? Anyone?
It really makes you listen very carefully to it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's played in a normal way, it can be a bit of a sort of a regular pattern. But that makes you really hang on the different phrases.
Yes, that's really great. Yeah, it keeps us engaged. Very good. Chris says it sounded smooth. Yeah, Eli's playing it very well. Yeah, I think it just adds, yeah, as Jill said, it sort of adds more dimension to it, and it's like a story. There's or like a painting. You're getting all these colors and shapes and sounds that would otherwise, yeah, especially that section repeats itself again. So, and then it repeats at the very end again. So we hear it 3 times. So if we heard it 3 times without any color changes, we might be wanting, a little bit, or or thinking about dinner or something by the 3rd time. Yeah. So.
Thank you very much, Daniel.
Thank you, Eli. That was great. Fantastic. Maybe we could do one more, making good time here. If we have if anyone would like to demonstrate something.
Daniel, I'd like to play a little bit of the B minor. It's the saw
The B minor study. Fantastic. Yes.
Yep, that's okay. Now,
Yeah.
I haven't played it for a while.
That's okay. That's okay. Even just the first 8 again. Oh, sorry, my computer's playing up. Maybe just the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's see. I just want to see if there's a section that might be more suitable for this kind of thing.
Yes, yeah. I hadn't thought of changing hand positions on it before, but
yeah,
it can be, perhaps started to B to see what it's like. Just, and then move. So, and then.
beautiful. Let's just talk through that again, please. So you started
B, I think.
B, yeah.
Started B. Look,
some kind of change.
Just as an experiment, and then move more to C.
C, yeah. Okay.
Sorry, move more to D. More to D.
More to D.
Closer to the
closer to the fretboard.
Sound hole.
Sound hole. Yeah.
The camera down a bit. Sorry.
Yeah, that would be great if we could see your
So I've got
right hand.
I've got a little camcorder sitting on top. I don't know. How's that?
Okay. No, that's good. That's good.
So,
yeah.
So I'll start at about there. And then move over. So.
Oh, moving over here to D. So sort of like Eli's move there, going gradually.
And then back. Whoops.
Maybe we could just take just those first 8 bars and think You know, because at the moment you're experimenting, which is great. It's a really, really good first way to do it. Taste testing is really great. Thanks, Jill. Hello, Jill. Jill L. Hard week in London. Thanks for being here. No worries. So maybe it can also, I mean, experimenting is really great. Sometimes it can also be good to maybe think about, you know, what's happening in the music to inform the decisions that we make. So, for example, I could suggest something, Paul, is that you could shift this over to here, like that. Why do you think that is? Why shift it over? What's happening in the music to that?
Yes, you've got that. You're making that statement, and then it's changing, and then back.
Yeah.
So you're going back to the day. So
that's it. Descending. The melody's descending there. Yeah. So you end. Yeah. Yeah. So you're starting quite strong up to the F sharp, and then descending, and then getting softer.
In fact, probably better to start closer to the sound hole than B. Maybe. Okay,
so maybe B. So maybe like C,
maybe
crescendo,
C.
B, and then decrescendo to D. That's a lot of detail for 4 bars. It's great.
So then back to D.
And then back to D. Yeah, it takes practice.
Yes.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind just hearing those first 4 bars again and just now it's sort of taste testing around this interpretation, sort of getting the right amount of, you know, C and the right amount of B and the right amount of D. Yeah. Yeah, that's nice. If you could, when you get softer, when you go towards D, if you could also drop the volume considerably more, I think that might be really nice. Actually, it could be worth practicing backwards and starting at D and finding that particular sound. Well, D, I guess, is here. You might want to consider going to E, perhaps, just to make it really obvious. So E is over here. A is close to the bridge. A, B, C,
sorry,
D,
coming the other way.
E. Yeah. So E is right up here. Yeah. E is actually plucking where the fretboard, like plucking on the fretboard.
So like
that's you're sort of at the sound hole there. So even further up. That's it. See that kind of sound you got?
Yes.
Yeah, it's quite a difference from the sound hole to the fretboard is quite cables. Yeah, even further up, and not only the position but the kind of touch that you get as well. If you can really get pay attention to the quality of the sound that's being created. Oh, that's neat. Are you zooming in there?
The camera did that by itself.
Oh, that's a miracle. That's amazing. I wish my camera could do that by itself. That's really
just sort of decided to go in.
That's really cool. There, it's doing it again. Oh, that's really cool. I'll get a nice close up of that. There we go. Yeah, up there. Up. Yeah. What if you went even further up the fretboard? Yeah, or maybe somewhere in between, like somewhere in between. Yeah, that. I kind of like
Very soft,
that spot.
very
Yeah,
soft.
it's got that very mellow harp-like sound there. Okay, so just in 4 bars there, we had 3 different colors, plus the transitions you were doing as well. That's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a big difference. It's hard to, when you're playing, then to think about the changing in the hand position. But look, it's great.
It takes practice. Just add something.
Adds colour to it. Yeah. And look, thank you. That's great.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Looking at it in a different way.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, so time has really flown. We're already halfway through. So maybe we'll take a little break and we'll talk about orchestral imitations next. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll go through a few examples, and I'd love for some of you to try some of these examples. So let's take 5 minutes and see you in 5 minutes.
Thanks, Daniel.
Cheers. Okie dokie. If you could make your way back, please. And we had a couple of new. Hello, Trisha. Yeah, came in just not too long ago. Good to see you again. We were just in the middle of a break there, and I think there might have been couple of others who came in as well. We just to summarize, Trisha. No worries. Yeah, we had daylight savings not too long ago, so that might have it would have been 7 o'clock before the daylight savings happened. So sorry about that. Daylight savings really frustrating when you've got all these different time zones to think about, and some time zones even within Australia, like up north in Queensland, they don't have daylight savings. So I have students up there, and I didn't realize that happens. So it puts you out an hour. So let me just, since we have a couple of new guests here, maybe I can just quickly summarize. If I can find my booklet. I think I exited out of it. Hold on one sec. Please. There it is. I'll just quickly summarize what we talked about. I suppose I should do that anyway. So we started off with talking about some quotes here from Saur, Aguado, Carulli, and Molino that might, may or may not surprise you as to what they were thinking. It really reveals how they were thinking about the tone production. And Saur and Carulli, Carulli's I think is probably the most concise to think about. He says the right hand does not have a fixed position because of the extent that you want to sweeten the sounds. To imitate the harp, and to do so you have to bring it closer to the sound hole. When you want to play loud, you have to bring the hand closer to the bridge. So just general remarks that can really open our eyes to some new ways of thinking in the first part there. Then we spoke about some plucking regions, and we saw that a lady by the name of Katharina Pratton, who is also known as Mrs. Sidney Pratton, wrote in a method book, described in an example 5 different plucking regions, whereas we tend to think of just 3. So we have 5 different plucking regions, A, B, C, D, and E. Each one has a particular type of effect or sound or volume. And then there's a passage of 6 measures here where she indicates 5 different changes of color within 6 measures. It's just about 1 per bar, 1 change per bar. And then I demonstrated I sort of applied this to Saur's Grand Solo, a few passages from Saur's Grand Solo. That was, a lot of fun to do that. And you can sort of, sometimes, dynamics will be there as a bit of a clue, and sometimes they won't, and we have to really come up with our own judgment. And then we looked at a few examples, variations on a theme by Mozart, which Jill played, and we sort of talked about the different effects, the different plucking regions you could do there. And then we had someone else, Lagrima, which Eli played, and again we just marked into the score. Lagrima doesn't have any dynamics though, so you really have to sort of come up with some interpretation. And then we ended with Saur's B minor study, and just looking at the first 4 bars which Paul played, and just looked at the first 4 bars and really exploring the effects of placing your hand in these different plucking regions. Okay, so there's a quick summary. So the next and final topic, we're going to skip dynamics because it's really it can be a separate topic on its own, even though there's not a lot of information, but the information here can be applied to just about anything. So orchestral imitations, this will be the next and final section for tonight. So this is I think the really fun part here. I don't really want to read all of this for you. In a nutshell, guitarists of the late 18th and 19th centuries were striving to imitate orchestral instruments like the oboe, the flute, the trumpet, and the drum, for example. And this a lot of this information was left in their method books, and I've actually found more since I wrote this. So there's quite a lot of information, specific examples, and descriptions of how to imitate these instruments. So that's what we're going to look at, and this can give you a sort of an arsenal, like weapons to use in your toolkit of playing, of interpretation. So you could use them in other styles of music, in your own music, in arrangements, in ensemble music, anything like that. Okay. So I'll start with the first instrument here, the oboe. And each instrument I've prefaced with Berlioz's description of the instrument from his modern treatise upon instrumentation. So, and you'll find a lot of the times that description will match whoever's describing the effect on the guitar, which is really interesting. I might just read maybe the first one here, just to give you an idea of the kind of language that Berlioz uses to describe these instruments. So the oboe is especially a melodial instrument. It has a pastoral character full of tenderness, nay, I would even say, of timidity. A certain degree of agitation is also within its powers of expression, but care should be taken not to urge it into utterances of passion, the rash outburst of anger, threat, or heroism, for then its small, acid-sweet voice becomes ineffectual and absolutely grotesque. Some great masters, Mozart among others, have not escaped this error. In their scores, passages are to be found, the impassioned meaning and martial accent of which contrast strangely with the sound of the oboe that executes them. It's pretty descriptive, isn't it? I think probably quite personal and subjective in some ways, but probably, I don't know the oboe so well, and I'm sure Berlioz had his sort of, particular ideas about it. Jill says, Saw and Carulli never had internet to distract them. So let's have a look here at what Saw says about the oboe. So this is from his method book. In imitating a singing passage for the oboe, it is only possible to venture on short passages in thirds, intermixing slurred and staccato notes. As the oboe has quite a nasal sound, not only touch the strings as near as possible to the bridge, but curve the fingers and use the little nail to set them in vibration. So this has a couple of really interesting implications, this very short quote. Excuse me. So, first of all, when thinking about orchestral imitations, we do need to keep in mind the actual arrangement of the music, the actual music itself. So, Saw here is saying there needs to be short passages in thirds with slurred and staccato notes. So that kind of writing is sort of inclined to give this effect of the oboe, if that makes sense. Then he says how to actually execute it. So the oboe has a nasally sound. So touch the string as near as possible to the bridge. So that's example A. So we were talking about earlier, the plucking regions. Right as close as possible to the bridge, right? As close as possible. And then he says, curve the fingers and use the little nail, and I would put in brackets, the little nail that you have to set them in vibration. And this also throws out the window this debate of nails versus flesh a little bit too. I think it wasn't that straightforward. I think guitarists were using both flesh and nails in their playing. If you get the right hand position and you have a very short amount of nail, you can use both. You can use flesh. I mean, even I can use flesh. I can use if I want to, I can, get a certain hand position that enables me to use flesh. I can use nail, right? A lot of people do this with their thumb, flesh thumb, nail thumb. I think guitarists were doing that in the 19th century as well. So that whole debate, that really black and white debate of nails versus flesh, I haven't done extensive research on it, but this quote sort of throws a little bit of that out the window. Fernando Sor was using his nails sometimes. So let's have a listen to this passage. Okay, so example A, as close to the bridge as possible. We get thirds intermixed with slurs and staccatos. Okay, here we go. Just go. Okay, one more time. All right, there we go. So I found a passage here. Once you sort of see this example, and the kind of effect that Sor wants, you can start to scout, you can start to browse through music and try to find similar passages. So I found this from a divertissement by Sor. Sounds cheeky. Yeah, it does sound cheeky. And you can see the thirds, and we have these slur marks here. So it could be an opportunity to use this effect. Instead of playing it just plainly, that just adds a whole effect to it. Okay, so that's the oboe. Would anyone like to have a go at maybe just, even the first couple of beats or so, just to get the sound quality? Example A, just doing thirds like something like that. Yeah, just that first little bit. Anyone like to have a go at that?
Maybe I can, but I actually had a comment.
Yes.
And I've already looked through this book before the workshop, and I noticed an imitation of the oboe in one of the piano pieces I play.
In one of the piano pieces you play, is it because it's similar? Is it written in a similar? Yeah.
Yeah, it's also a 19th century.
Oh, fascinating. So what's the piece and composer?
It's humoresque, spelled Humoresque. By Dvorak.
By Dvorak?
Yes.
All right. And does he actually indicate that it's an imitation of an oboe, or is it?
I think it is. It uses slurred and staccato notes, and it uses lots of thirds as well. Wow,
that's so interesting. But he doesn't write any footnote or anything. He doesn't write that it's an oboe.
No, just I think it is an imitation of the oboe.
It could very well be. That's really, really, really interesting. I don't know how you do that on the piano. Maybe try to get a crisp. I'm not sure exactly a nasally tone on the piano. I'm not sure how that can be done, but that's really interesting. I'm gonna check that one out. Yeah. Yeah, I haven't looked much into other the piano. I know that Franz Liszt did a lot of transcriptions of symphonies and all sorts of things. Orchestral music onto the piano, and I'm sure he was thinking about all of this kind of thing, thinking orchestrally. But that's great, Eli. Really, that's good find. Excellent. So would anyone like to have a go, or does anyone know of another passage that you've played that's got this kind of writing in it that might be imitating oboe or oboes. Anyone like to have a go? See, a lot of you got guitars in your hands, but maybe a bit shy to.
Yeah, I'm sight reading down, but can I have a go?
Jill, yes. I'll get you on here. Cool. Have a go, please, Jill.
Whoops. Playing it to, I've just seen it quite literally.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Could if possible, could we see your right hand, if possible, please?
Oh, sure.
If you're able to angle the camera down, that'd be great. Because I think you could get closer to the bridge, just judging from the sound of it, but I just need to make sure.
Is that better? Whoops. Not my week for technology.
That's good. That's good. I think that should be spot on. Yeah, awesome. Yes. So Jill, as close to the bridge as possible is that, to use Saw's words. Yeah, that's it.
So when you're talking about the nails, you're talking about the nails on the right hand rather than the left.
Yeah, nails on the definitely nails on the right hand. Yep. I still think you could get closer to the bridge. So your fingers are actually right next to the bridge. You're plucking as close to the bridge as possible. That's pretty good. I think that kind of sound quality you're getting. Yeah.
I just need to be a bit more strength in it.
Well, Burley, did Burlier said, what did he say? Timidity in the oboe. So maybe that kind of timidity is good. Maybe it's not meant to be so strong. Yeah. Maybe I was playing it too strong. Maybe you're doing a better job of closer.
I wasn't sure how to
representation.
How to apply the slurs, whether to slide them.
Oh yeah. I think it'd be basically like a slide. Yeah, something like a slide, and then the staccatos too.
Yeah, because it occurred to me that the slide gives you that nasally thing that you hear. Because I love the oboe. I've got a few pieces in oboe, and I try to imitate it myself when I'm singing, kind of thing, just because it's got that somehow it's very, very glissando all the time, but it's not obviously not glissando when they're playing the oboe, but it's that kind of nasal slide, that blurs the notes somehow. Yeah. That's really great. I wasn't aware of. I don't know the oboe so well, so that's. To have that sort of extra background from you is really interesting. Yeah. I'm just interested in the instrument because I like the oboe and the clarinet. So.
Well, that's fantastic. You're perfect to demonstrate that effect there.
I'm gonna practice that, Dan. That's cool.
Yeah, have a practice and be on the lookout for any passages that look like this, look similar to that, in any of the pieces or studies or anything you're playing from this period. Okay, so we have, thank you, my pleasure. So there we have the oboe. Let's move on to the next instrument, the flute. So again, we have Berlioz's description of the flute. I won't read that this time. So here we have Saw again, talking about the flute. This one is not as, he doesn't really speak much about how to play, like what to do, technically to create a flute-like sound, but I've came up with maybe some clues. But he does give us another piece of the puzzle, which is that So harmonic sounds, they cannot always imitate the flute, as the flute is unable to produce sounds so low in pitch as the guitar. To imitate an instrument, it is requisite for the imitating instrument to be at the same pitch. So figuration and pitch are important factors, right? If something's really low, it's probably not imitating a flute, because a flute flutes can play fairly low, but they tend to play in the higher register. So it is necessary to attend to the notes to which the harmonies correspond. For the imitation of the flute would be attained by producing the passage as it appears here. So he's basically saying the register. So this is probably, if you're going to write something, this is probably not, and imitate the flute, this register might not be ideal. So put it up an octave. Okay, so instead of that, we have up an octave, right? And that already changes the character of the piece of the passage, doesn't it? Just by that simple act of changing the register. So he doesn't give us any more information than that, and I would like more. I would like more specific information. So there are a couple of clues, and we can use Berlioz's quote up there as well to help. So we can use the correlation between Berlioz's description and Saw's musical example. So Berlioz talks about the flute being really great for rapid passages. Okay, rapid passages. If you've heard, when the flute can just flurry. My wife's a flute player, my wife Marla, so I'm a bit more aware of the flute than many other instruments, the flute's characteristics. So rapid passages they can do with great ease and facility. So this can be done as suggested by Saw's example with the use of slurs. So he's added these slurs in there that can help help you play the passage faster. So excuse me. So I found an example where I think Saw is imitating a flute, which is in this introduction to Opus 16. Yeah, and I also edited it as well. And now this introduction is very much like an overture, just like many introductions are in this period. So it's very orchestral. So these circled passages, I'm kind of saying that maybe those are flutes. They're in the right register. They're very rapid, and he's indicating them to be done in, like one sweep, like a flute would, not to pluck, that kind of thing. It's like, just as, sorry. He's also indicated the dolce as well. So that gives us another clue. Maybe rapid passages that are high, lots of slurs, and played dolce. That could give off the effect, suggestion of a flute. Okay, so let me try to play this here. I've also put in this example, I've put in like my own orchestration. So, the opening here, these big chords, which are very big on this modern instrument. With the instrument Saw was using, these chords would be a bit friendlier. So, but we have forte, big chords, tutti orchestra. Goodness. Right, not the most comfortable for me to play anyway. But then we get this little flute passage. And then back. And then a flute. So we're getting this kind of alternating between the big force of the full orchestra and then this, beautiful little flute fluttering away in the background, yeah? Or in between. And then we get a very similar passage here, another, big chords, tutti, full orchestra. And then dolce again, flute, lots of rapid notes in a high register. very difficult to play as well. And then we get a few more, maybe another, bassoon and oboe, a trio. Tutti, flute, and oboe perhaps. Okay, so that's my attempt at orchestrating the example. And you can, really adds a lot of color, and it makes it quite challenging to play as well, as you're having to, move the right hand around and think about all of these. It's almost like you're conducting, sort of like full orchestra and then flute and then full orchestra, so. But it's a really good exercise to try and do that, to label your score. And I mean, I think that's a pretty clear example that could be a flute there. Would anyone like to have a go at maybe this passage is not too bad here. It's in the first position. You can do those first sort of, how many notes, 5 or 6 notes, 6 or 7 notes in one. And just playing at tasto, but the aim is to get a pretty rapid, execution with a tasto soft light touch. Anyone like to have a go at that?
Shall I have a go?
Eli, yeah?
Or if anyone else wants to, because I've already been.
Yeah, is there anyone else who'd like to have a go before Eli takes a shot at it? Everyone's scared of the rapid execution, aren't they? Yeah. Except Eli, the youngest by far. All right. I think Eli will. Let's have a go, Eli. Give it a go for us, please.
Okay. Well, maybe that's a bit soft. Can you hear?
No, I can hear that. Maybe more tasto, please, as well. Yeah. Yeah. If possible, can you go faster? Is there any more? What I suggest, and one little suggestion, if you have your finger resting on the first string, you do the slow, and then your finger's already, yeah. That's great. Good job. Excellent job. Yep.
Let's play with a 4 on the D, because you have a C chord underneath.
Yeah. It doesn't matter too much. If you, that's good. That's great. Excellent. What do you think about that, Eli? Because you're, a bit more, pretty musically versatile. What do you think about that? Does that sort of seem to imitate a flute? In your opinion?
It does, yes, quite.
Sort of, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Great.
Dan, I have a question about the fact that the B is notated as an open string. Would you use the open string for that?
I don't think it is notated as an open string.
Oh, isn't it?
So.
My eyesight.
Oh no, I mean in the original, I notated it. I gave fingerings, but they're my fingerings. Do you think in a more closed, more closed position, like on the third?
I'm just thinking of anchoring the slurring, because it takes a wee bit of strength and practice to get an even tone for that full 5-note passage.
Yeah. So where would you? Yeah.
So I'd just take my
could do it on the.
Maybe put a slide in it or something. I don't know. I'm just
it's interesting that because
listening to the different tones, because the B would ring on as an open note.
Yeah. Yep, it's a really interesting, to think about, because this has these passages are not provided with fingering, so that's another factor as well. Yep, good one. All right, we might need to move on now. So thank you, Eli, and thanks for those remarks there, Jill. So we might need to move on because we've got a few more instruments to talk about. So the next one is the trumpet. So both Aguado and Saw left detailed instructions on how to imitate a trumpet. Both authors' technique for imitating a trumpet involves, get this, using the left-hand fingers to create a buzzing sound. Unfortunately, Aguado doesn't provide a musical example, though the technique and effect are clearly explained. So this is Aguado's description of how to create the effect of a trumpet. If instead of pressing the string on the right part of the fret, which means right behind the fret, the finger presses it in the middle of the fret before the right hand plucks the strings, the vibrations start on the side of the fret bar and the string sizzles. If the finger of the left hand moves toward the left part of the fret, the string sizzles more, thus producing a sound similar to that of the trumpet. We would often call this a mistake, right? That's what a bung note, a wrong note, or a buzzed note. But you can tell people, I was imitating a trumpet. Saw does provide a brief musical example for imitating a trumpet, as well as further details. So here Saw is giving us the sort of the range. Again, remember the importance of the register, the range of notes that's being used in the particular passage. So it's fairly lower, a bit lower range now. Although, contradictory to that, his example is up high. So I'm not sure why he did that. But here he gives a description of where to place your finger, right? So halfway between the fret. So you end up getting this kind of sound. That kind of effect, yeah? That's pretty cool, yeah? So would anyone like to have a go at this effect? And this passage is not too bad. You could put you're in the second position. Anyone? It's like making a mistake on purpose.
I'll give it a go.
Paul? All right. Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Oh, the zooming's happening again. Look at that.
Sorry.
Yeah. See if you can make Paul. That's sounding great. Even those last two notes. If you. And I don't know if trumpets. I guess they can probably do vibrato, but maybe taking away the vibrato might make it sound even more trumpet-like.
Yes.
Just a flat. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. And then
I did it on the A.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. Oops. Very good.
Dan, I've spent my whole life trying to avoid buzzers, and now we finally get an excuse to use it.
There you go. Yes, and Chris said, half of my notes sound like that already. Yes. but it's a really neat effect that you'd never think. Well, I never thought that could be an effect we could actually use. I haven't found many examples. I haven't looked very hard yet, but I haven't found many examples of this. But there's one here that could possibly be a trumpet. This is from a funeral march as well. So trumpets. I mean, sometimes they're used in processional events. Like maybe a funeral of a king or something. So in this passage here, we've got this forte and these E's here. Now it could be trumpet, it could be a horn as well. Then I think that's the next instrument. We're talking about a horn, and there is an example that's very similar to here, which is a horn. So could be a horn, but if we were to say that it's a trumpet, we could play it that way. And Eli's got a question: am I right in thinking these passages are often in arpeggio-like form? I guess trumpets, if that's what trumpets play, that's another factor as well. I can imagine that kind of figure being played on a trumpet, the rhythm as well. That kind of gesture sounds quite suitable for a trumpet to play. So yeah. But here we go. This could be. Yeah, that could be a trumpet. Kind of a cool effect there. Military call to action. Yeah, that's Jill's arpeggio texture. Both. Yeah, I guess this. I'm not sure if this is an actual passage. All in the intonations. Could be a passage, although he might just be showing a range of notes here. I'm not 100% sure. But he's saying these passages are commonly all in the intonations shown below. So I think this is just a range of notes. This kind of maybe. Jill said, it's too long hanging around Air Force band halls. I've spent too long in practice rooms, sitting next to a trumpet player too, and guitar has no chance. Okay. So yeah, there's a possible example, and maybe you can find some in the pieces you're working on. So possibly a trumpet here, but I need to find maybe a more convincing example. This is a really good one for just thinking about all of what we've talked about with plucking regions. You'll get the forte, these dolce notes. Well, if she didn't write dolce there, maybe that could be a trumpet. The only thing that contradicts is the dolce. Let's yeah, I'm not too sure. And then here we get this beautiful passage. I think basically Pratton was thinking very orchestrally when writing this example. So alright, so there's the trumpet. Next one is the horn. And now we have quite a few examples here for the horn. And that's probably the last instrument I would have thought the guitar to imitate, the horn. But here you go. Saw and Pratton left detailed instructions for creating a horn effect. The horns might very well perform. So this is Fernando Saw. Something like that. But that melody not being natural for the second horn player, who would be obliged to employ his right hand to produce B, it is written as this. So Saw obviously knew a heck of a lot about horns, right? Because he knew that there's something about this, the way that this passage is written, that would be a bit awkward for the second horn player. So he rewrote it this way. So playing that B there is awkward for the horn player, apparently. So that's okay. So he went from that to which sounds more brass, more horn-like somehow. I'd say more open, I guess, more open voicings, but very, very specific knowledge of the horn. And I actually played that wrong. So in terms of fingerings, this is an important point about the horn. So this phrase, already in the style, and as it were in the dialect of the instruments imitated, which to accomplish, take no note with the left hand on the string to which it first belongs, but on the string next to it, so as not to play an open string. So basically, in a nutshell, don't use open strings when you're imitating a horn, if you're Fernando Saw. So this example, which if we saw this without fingering, we'd be tempted to play it like that, with open, easy first position. But Saw is saying not to use open strings, I think because that contributes to the sound of a horn as well. Something like that, right? So just changing the position, fingerings of the passage can also have an effect on the imitation, on the sound. Pratton has 3 examples, 3 horn examples. Who would have guessed 3 horn examples on the guitar? 3 different ways to imitate a horn. So the first one, an effect produced by the points of the nails of the right hand close to the bridge, imitating the sound of horns or bugles. So again, nails, right hand close to the bridge. Remember that the oboe, that's the same way of imitating the oboe. So the difference is the musical content now. So that's kind of the difference here. Oboes were passages in thirds with slurs and staccatos, and Saw's example was fairly higher, a bit higher in register overall. Horns sort of middle to high register. And we've also got this interesting doubling of an open string with a fretted note at the same time. So this example with imitating horns at a distance using the nails of the first and second fingers close to the bridge sounds like this. It's a really cool effect, combining those open strings with the fretted notes. So it really sounds like 2 instruments, even though they're playing the same note a lot of the time. This is a different effect of a horn. Example with the thumb and the first finger without the nails. Very, very different kind of an effect. And then one more is an amusing one that can be obtained in imitation of a single horn by playing a succession of notes upon one of the bass strings with the first finger nail. Keep in mind again, this sometimes using nail, sometimes using flesh. So here is the example here. So I'm going to use my nail on the bass string, all on the 4th. I'm going to play this passage all on the 4th string. Okay, so lots of factors: the fingering, the register, and the using one finger has a particular effect to it. Using the nail makes it brighter and more humorous. So a lot of detail there. And these might correspond with Berlioz describes open sounds of the horn and closed sounds of the horn. When they what is that they close, when they close the bell, that's when they get that closed sound, and then the open sound is the natural sort of horn sound. And Eli knows horns a little bit too, so second horn plays in flat keys normally. That's a good little insight there, Eli. Alright, so there is the horn. Would anyone like to have a quick go at one of these examples? Anyone?
I'll have a go. If nobody else wants
Trisha,
to.
cool, yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Which one would you like to?
23, the
23. So that's you're going to play with, I think, close to the bridge.
Close to the bridge.
Right hand close to the bridge, and using your index and middle fingers for every, in succession. Yeah.
No. There's too many things, like rubbing your hands and rubbing your tummy and tapping your head.
You're doing good. Sounding good. Nice.
So it's near the bridge and using index and middle.
Near the bridge, index and middle. Yep. I think actually there might be two ways to play it. I think one is with the nails, and then the other is with the thumb and the first finger without the nails, also close to the bridge. I think that's this one. Sorry, that's this one. That's also close to the bridge. I played that wrong. I played that more tusto like this. It should be close. This second example, 24, you should be playing with great force close to the bridge, without the nails. Just to clarify that one. Yep.
Without the nails.
Without the nails. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that sounds like a horn or not.
I think it sounds like, something that's, some sort of effect that's very unusual. So, awesome. Fantastic. Thank you, Trisha. We'll have to move on here. Giuliani actually provided a example. Eli thinks it sounds somewhat like a horn. That's good. Excellent. In one of his pieces, Opus 6, with his in Italian here, he actually wrote into the music, and this is the translation, with the right hand near the rosette for the imitation of the sound of corny, or the sound of horns. So that's really interesting, isn't it? This whole, this whole sort of this up to here, I think up to this point, played in with that effect. And we have all these dynamics and everything in there as well. But we might have to move on because we have a couple more instruments. There is a similar type of texture as this one found in Giuliani's Variations on a Theme by Handel. So that could be a similar effect. It's sort of another way of imitating the horn. We only have 2 to go, so we'll very, very quickly talk about these ones. So I think we might not even need to demonstrate these because they're quite straightforward. It's more in the figuration now than anything. But the harp, I think probably the one instrument that I'd think of out of all of these that I would have thought, yeah, the guitar can have a harp-like sound. But this is really interesting. Obviously we have to keep in mind the type of figuration, that's being used. But Aguado says that it's possible to imitate the harp by plucking the strings on the last frets of the neck. So you're going to be like example E, right at the plucking at the fretboard. With the right hand, with an adequate position of the wrist, this sound will be all the more effective as the left hand presses the strings on top of the neck. So when the left hand's playing high, fretting notes, and then your right hand's plucking here, they're very close together, and you get this kind of very, very interesting effect, isn't it? Yeah, it kind of sounds like if I play that normally. Right, if I didn't know what to do, that's probably how I would play it. If I didn't, but Aguado's instructing. I think there's something about the hands being so close together that makes it. There's not much distance in the string there, so it gets a very unusual kind of a sound. So that's Aguado, and then Saw says touch the strings at 1/2 the distance from the 12th fret to the bridge. So he's saying, I think that would be 12th fret to the bridge, halfway, around the sound hole area. So similar sort of a sound, but also the figuration is quite similar too. Yeah, beautiful kind of a sound, isn't it? When you combine high positions on the left hand with tusto plucking region with the right hand, it's very, very, it's like a sort of a heavenly, harp effect, I think. It's really, really lovely. And the last one is the drum. And Pratton says the drum is an effect peculiar to the guitar as an imitation, and is produced by raising the right hand 6 or 8 inches from the sounding board. I won't really go into that. I think a lot of us would know this as tambura, the tambura effect, where you hit the strings with either your thumb or your fingers, right? This kind of thing. You do it with your thumb. We can do with your fingers as well, which is what Aguado says here. You can strike the strings near the bridge with the middle finger or with the thumb. And that's, you kind of need to have chords to do that. So that's the drum effect. I think most of you are probably already familiar with that. That's probably another common one, the tambura, that's sometimes indicated in pieces. Right? Is that new to anyone, that kind of effect? Or it's, I think, fairly well known. Tambura basically means drum already, so that technique is imitating a drum. But there are a couple of examples here. This one by Pratton, and really, really cool, because it's like a lot of the time it's intermixed with plucking and strumming and that kind of thing as well. So, and this one's Aguado's example. Okay, so if we had to summarize all of this information, we talked about the the oboe playing close to the bridge with the nails to obtain a nasal tone, best applied to passages intermixed in thirds. The flute, play tusto, using some flesh to produce a breathy tone, best applied to very rapid passages in higher registers. To imitate the trumpet, place your left hand halfway between the frets so as to produce a buzzing sound. best applied to single line melodies with a powerful rhythm. To imitate the horn, there are multiple options. You can either play I and M close to the bridge, P and I close to the bridge, or with I on a single bass string. To imitate the harp, play close to or at the fretboard, best applied to a melodic line combined with flourishing arpeggios. And to imitate the drum, use either your thumb or index or middle finger, I should have said middle finger, to fall onto the strings close to the bridge, often called tambura, best applied to repeating chords. So there is your arsenal there of effects that, 6 different orchestral effects. I think gives you a huge range of effects to choose from. You do have to keep in mind the actual musical content as well, that it sort of fits and matches the instrument you're trying to imitate, or if you're composing something, or if you're looking out for these things in a piece of music. So there we go. Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. That was really fun to go through that and have a lot of you apply these things. I'm planning to continue this kind of format and do 3 more workshops if anyone's interested. And there's lots of topics, lots of great information we can go through. So they'll be 3 more days, October 23rd next week, then the week after, and then the week after on the Thursday. It'll be a lot of fun with 2 hours, and we'll go through next week. We'll talk about dynamics, which we haven't covered today. It's in the book here, but it's really, really fascinating when you start applying this information, because then it opens up. I mean, orchestral imitations, they're sort of they're not that common. They do occur in pieces, but dynamics is something we do just about all the time. So these we can explore these ideas to do with dynamics, and articulation will be the other topic as well. And it's really fascinating, when we probably think of articulation as, we should try and play legato as much as possible, and unless it's marked in the score, we'll play staccato. But there's quite a lot of information. I'm just going through the book here about articulation, and articulation can really bring passages to life as well. So that'll be next week, dynamics and articulation. And then the week after that, we'll talk about tempo and rhythm, a really important aspect as well, talking about accent. Also brings to life passages in a lot of detail, but this information, it's quite easy to apply to pieces you're playing. It should apply to any example. So there's lots there to do with accent, and then to do with tempo, rubato, ritardando and accelerando. And then the final week, we'll talk about ornamentation. And there's a whole bunch of great information and a lot of exercises you can practice as well for ornamentation. So you'll learn the names of them and explore how you can apply them. I think because there are so many different types of ornaments, I think guitarists were using them a lot, and I think we're very conservative when it comes to using ornaments. Unless it's written down, we might add like 1 or 2 in a piece or something, but there's probably scope to do quite a bit more, and especially for repeated passages or repeated sections, that can make a lot of great deal of interest to that. So we'd love to continue this with you and keep on applying this information. So for the 3 extra workshops, and today was a free session, so I'm really grateful that you're all showed up and you had the interest to be here and be so engaged. But for the 3 further sessions of 2 hours, and we'll also have a Facebook group where you can, you know, ask questions, and we can sort of do a little bit of workshopping and that kind of thing, similar to the composition course. If any of you are, I think quite a few of you have done the composition course, maybe most of you. It's 200 Australian dollars for an early bird registration. So I'll leave that there for the weekend. Give you the weekend to have a think, and we'll have 6 more hours of this plus the Facebook group. So I'll put the link in here into Zoom, and I'll also send you guys a recording of today, and send that in Zoom there, and I'll send you a recording with the link again. And if you'd like to continue, it'd be a lot of fun. Really would enjoy that, and you'll get those books that I showed you as well. So there's 3 more books as well. Yeah, awesome. I think that's everything. So any sort of questions to finish up? Any questions from anyone about anything? You're all excited to apply this information to...
I just think this information makes it really interesting to practice, Dan, because when you're practicing scales and things, they can get boring, but if you apply all these little techniques and try out these techniques as you're practicing, it makes it so much more fun and motivating.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely.
So thank you.
Definitely. Yeah, no, my pleasure. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, I just want to say thank you. It's been very, there are definitely things to try and apply to our playing.
Yep. Yes, lots to apply. I was surprised the more I dug into it, the more information I was finding, and then, you know, it's especially the idea of plucking regions, changing the plucking region, that can be applied to just about any piece you're playing. The orchestral effects are a bit more of a sort of a special effect that you might find occasionally. It might depend on the piece. There might be some introductions, for example, if you're playing a sonata or something and there's a big introduction, that's often like an overture, which is written very orchestrally. So you might find a lot of scope for the orchestral imitations in that kind of a piece. But definitely the plucking regions, I think all of us can apply that to virtually any piece from the late 18th century or the 19th century. So I guess we'll wrap it up there. So thanks everyone. That was a lot of fun to go through with you all, and wish you a good night.
Very much, Daniel.
Thank you, Jill, Eli, Karen, Trisha, Paul.
Thanks very much.
Jill, Tom, very much, everyone. Kevin.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul, Yvonne, Chris, Henry, Valdas, Mario. Thank you.
This was a great workshop. Thank you.
Thanks, Eli.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, it's always great to see you.
Bye,
All right. Have a good night, everyone. All the best.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.